So, Florida's response to Russia's invasion to Ukraine, what is that like? How is it impacting South Florida? I am Robert Asencio, your host, and this is Let's Talk with Robert Asencio. Today, to discuss this, is the former mayor of the city of Sunny Isles Beach, Larisa Svechin.
Yes.
Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So, no laughing matter, but I apologize because I am known for messing up last names.
No
So-
problem. I'm used to it.
Okay, I'm sure you are. It's like Asencio. Anyway, so let's talk about Sunny Isles Beach, right?
Mhm.
It is known. The area is known as Little Moscow. Some people refer to it. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but there's a high concentration of population of people who come from that side of the world. Many cultures, as we were talking offline, many countries. But the point is that your part of the county has been the center for this response in South Florida
Mhm.
to mainly helping those who are fleeing, now the refugees. And we see what's going on in Ukraine. Oh man, devastating. I'm getting chills just even coming up with words to express what I'm viewing in all sorts of the media, in all sides of the media, left, right, center, freelancers. The point is that the people of Ukraine are suffering immensely. The bombing of the theater the night before last in Mariupol, where the children and the families were seeking refuge, was inhumane. So I don't want to get into the blame part, but I want to get into what is going on in the county, what is going on in Florida. What can you tell us about how the community is responding to the effort, the call for humanitarian need, and how can we help?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there that you've asked, but let me take it back.
Let's unpack it.
Yeah,
Unpack it. We have
yeah.
half an hour. Let's try to give people a better sense of what's going on, because again, there's misinformation, and there's some people that are being targeted of the
Mhm.
community inappropriately,
Mhm.
unjustly. And I want to talk about that. I want to give people a little sense of that part of the world, what's going on. But before we do that, about you, right? So you're the former mayor
Yes.
of the city of Sunny Isles Beach. You're also a Harvard student. You're working on your master's. You should receive your master's shortly
Mhm.
in government.
Yes.
And you're also a person who knows what it is to live under the USSR, as you were immigrated from the USSR, former USSR,
Mhm.
in 79.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in that world? And thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for having me. I want to clarify as far as Sunny Isles Beach and the Little Moscow nickname, or whatever you want to call it. That's really the media. Nobody there calls it that, because we are a very diverse community, and probably a very small percentage comes from Moscow.
My apologies. My
No,
apologies to the community, but
no,
there you go. That's what we
we
need
want
to
to
do.
correct that, right?
Uh-huh.
And we have a very large Portuguese-speaking population, probably larger than anywhere else in the county, along with Russian speakers who come from all of the former Soviet republics. So it is a very diverse but close-knit community. I grew up, well, my first 6 years, I was in the Soviet Union, and I was born in Belarus. Gomel is a small city that is not far from the border with Ukraine and the border with Russia. I still have family in all three of those countries, as well as other areas of the former Soviet Union. So this is a very tough conversation for me personally. It's tough for me as a community leader, and also for someone that is studying government and justice. It's really top of mind for me.
Mhm.
So the people in our community are very closely tied to that part of the world. Even those potentially that were not born there, we have a lot of mixed marriages. We have Russian-speaking moms with Spanish, Latin last names. So it's a really unusual community. So our efforts right now are twofold. It's to help those that are coming in any way possible, and I could talk about that more as we go through this. And really, for me personally, I want to make sure that as the media is there and interviewing people, and it's really on a daily basis. Yesterday there was ABC there and Miami Herald was there, that it's not that the media is not looking for a headline, that they're not looking to see, well, are you guys all fighting over there in Sunny Isles Beach? This is not true. We are like any other community that's dealing with something that is very tragic, very similar to what other ethnic communities or immigrants have gone through in the
Sure.
past.
So there's unity.
There is unity, and of course there's conversation and there's arguments, just like any other conflict.
So how's your family doing? The family members who are still in the impacted zone.
Well, here's where we come to the different sort of sides of the story, right? When I'm speaking to them, as far as they're concerned, and really legally, they can't even call it a war. So,
That's right.
yeah,
That's right. The government has taken strong action against those who will speak about the war.
you can't call it a war. And so when you're, first of all, I only talk to them or text with them with WhatsApp. They won't speak any other way. But even those that have come here, when I've said, are you willing to talk about it with the media? Their response is, well, our intention is to go back. So we want to make sure that we don't say anything here that's going to affect us down the road, because those laws may affect us even in Ukraine, depending on what happens.
So well put. So let's be sensitive about what I asked, right?
Well, I can speak freely, you know.
Well, I don't want to put
I'm
your
an American.
family-
I'm an American,
Okay.
and
But your family.
it's fine. It's
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you for that.
yeah, absolutely.
Man, it's like so complicated.
It is.
And it's a system that is so foreign to us here who live in a free democracy, right?
Mhm.
Where we can say our piece. And
Well,
have,
those that are from Cuba and from, well, really, I think that the people of South Florida could probably understand this better than any other population in the country, because so many come from those kinds of authoritarian regimes and communism.
yeah. So when I was in the service during the Cold War era,
Hmm.
our area of geography that we were responsible for was the eastern part of NATO.
Hmm.
So it was along the border of the USSR. And I remember training with troops from that area. And it took us a while to just be able to coalesce because the cultures were different, right? And we just did not understand each other. So we're speaking freely when they're more reserved, and we're thinking, what's wrong with them? Do they not like us? And it was quite the opposite. They were drawn to us, but they were careful about what they were saying because they were from that part of the world. And some of them had come from the USSR where their freedoms were so restricted that they had a hard time. But they're great people, and they shouldn't. The point is that no one should be suffering the
Right.
way this community or that country is, and those people in that area. And am I correct to say that it's not just Ukrainians fleeing the war,
Of course.
the war zone, because it's a war zone.
Absolutely. And we will probably see a lot of that. And there's going to be lots of confusion, especially since most people in the West have a hard time understanding the difference between someone that speaks Russian, someone that's a Russian national, and someone that's ethnically Russian, just the same as Ukraine is a language, it's a country, and it's also ethnicity. So you're going to have lots of combinations, and many are trying to get through the only way they can right now from Russia that I've heard is through Serbia, because so many planes that's it, they're not flying in or out. At one point, I think it was Turkish Air, and even they may no longer be flying out.
And now Poland, a lot of the refugees are going to Poland, right?
How much more can they take? I think they
I
have
think
it.
2 million? Is it 2 million?
Almost
or-
2 million, correct.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the bulk of the refugees.
So let's take it back a little bit. And can you give us an understanding? And forgive me for being so ignorant, because again, it's cultures of the world
Sure.
that I just don't know that much about.
Hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about give us a better understanding of the history of the two countries and their respective roles during the Soviet Union era?
We only have like 30 minutes.
Well, just condense it.
Sure.
Cliff notes here, elevator type.
So that part of the world, I think it's important to understand, is more Eastern than Western. So when you were saying earlier about the officers being more reserved, think about it from the sense of Russians don't ask when they meet you, how are you? Like Americans and Latin people do. It's a very unusual thing for them. So they have a very different sort of mentality because of their history.
Mm-hmm.
That part of the world before it was the Soviet Union was the Russian Empire. And before that, it was at one point either there was a war with the Mongols. There was a war with peoples from the north, the Vikings, as we like, as we commonly call them. So it's a very different sort of area compared to Western Europe. So at one point or another, and this is where Putin has made these comments in the beginning, and this was his justification, was that the Ukrainian border, their sovereignty, is a made-up border created because of in response to a war. And there is some truth to that certain parts of Ukraine, certain parts of Belarus were Poland or were Austria, were different countries at some point. But really, they've always been, in one way or another, connected to Russia, the Russian Empire. Kiev was a huge empire at one point as well. But historically, the people of Ukraine, the ethnic Ukrainians, have always been much more nationalistic as far as their culture and protective of their language than other areas such as Belarus. So I was born in Belarus. I don't speak Belarusian. In fact, I don't know anyone that speaks Belarusian that's from there, because they were very easily assimilated into Russia. So there's always been that sort of, I wouldn't call it necessarily conflict, but difference between Ukraine and Russia.
So is Putin, as one would expect, is his attempt to reconstitute the USSR?
Sure. I've always believed that from the very beginning. When the 91, the fall of communism, I had just graduated college, and I just so happened that summer went to Russia. So I witnessed a lot of what was happening. And in those years after, when everyone said, oh, we won the Cold War, this is great, Russia is gone, no more Soviet Union, I looked at everyone and I said, are you kidding me? This is a blip. They're just going to sit quiet and wait and build it all back together, because the connections that those people have thousands of years. It's hard for us in the US to understand because of the difference in how many years we've been a country. You can't break those ties so easily. And so till this day, you have, for instance, in Sunny Isles Beach, many people that don't necessarily look Russian, whatever that means to a lot of people. And I've had people say that to me, you don't look Russian. I said, well, it's 12 different time zones. It's I don't know how many ethnicities, like Asian peoples from Kazakhstan, people that are the Muslim faith that may be a different, like Uzbekistanis, they all speak Russian. And it's been 30 years, right? So wow. It's a tough history to really understand.
So let's try to bring it back closer to home.
Okay.
How is the war impacting the businesses in the community in the county?
Well, the businesses that are Russian speakers, because most of them are actually not even Russian. They everyone just calls them that Russian store, that Russian restaurant, but they could be Azerbaijani. They could even be Armenian. Okay. They all chose to set up their small business in Sunny Isles Beach, which for whatever reason, whether it was because of language or what, was a very good choice, because we have an amazing city, an amazing economy. We have a lot of tourism.
It's a huge economic driver for the county.
Yes.
Anyone that travels there can see it right off the bat. Exactly. So it's a very vital part of our county, yes.
Right. So I imagine for stores and restaurants that are potentially outside of Sunny Isles Beach, they're much more impacted. I walked around some of the stores yesterday, crowded as usual. Perhaps more people visiting Sunny Isles Beach or Miami that are Americans may feel like, oh, I'm not going to go to that Russian store. But we have thriving businesses, and I think that they are doing very well. They are staying away from these kinds of conversations between themselves because everyone has such strong feelings about this. This is so close to home.
I would imagine. I would even think that the family members within one family household, people are reserving their comments.
I don't talk to my mother or some of my siblings about this because we have different opinions about it.
Wow. So what are the misconceptions that we can tell the audience to look out for? I just made one, right? I committed a big faux pas by calling Sunny Isles Little Moscow, but that's what most refer to it, even though it's incorrect, and I will not do it again.
Well, that was done in order to kind of give it a place that people would understand.
Everybody wants an identity label.
For tourism, right? And one of the misconceptions is going back to the language. So really understanding that when someone is speaking Russian, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are a supporter of Putin. In fact, chances are, if they're in South Florida, they are not a supporter of Putin because they chose to live here and chose to live in this sort of environment ideology.
Mhm.
This goes back to his speech that he gave was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
He was trying to affect that mentality of people that were from or currently are still living in Russia that have a Western mentality. He wanted to remind them, you are never going to be one of them. You will always be one of us. You will never come to their caste. He used that word a few
Mhm.
times. And so the people that you see living in South Florida or anywhere in the country, there's a large population in San Francisco, in New York, in Cleveland. A lot of my family had just moved from Israel to areas in Canada that all speak Russian. These are not the people that we should be angry with. Let's just say that. And especially in Sunny Isles Beach, the bulk of them have been probably okay in the past with saying, oh, you're Russian, because it's hard for them to explain which part of the
Mhm,
country
mhm.
they are. The best part about this, I would say, is unfortunately, people now understand the different areas of that part of the world. Now I think they're going to be less likely to say, yes, I'm Russian. They'll tell you, I'm from Kazakhstan, I'm from Uzbekistan.
And are you seeing incidents of discrimination against the community members at all?
On social media, I have, and I've had private conversations where friends of mine have shared with me that they are no longer friends with some of their friends because of these conversations. Things like, we're going to hang every one of your children after this in response to this. You have done awful things to us. I've heard Americans, meaning Western people, that are originally from here or have lived here many years that have no connection to people that speak Russian, saying things like, we need to take away all of their apartments, all of their, yachts, as if
Yeah.
they all have yachts. And so there is a fear from regular Russian speaking people in the community that own any sort of property, that don't think of themselves as oligarchs at all, that could happen because their experience in the past in the communist country, that does happen. You can get your apartment taken away.
Thank God we still have a system of law and we have a country of democracy
Yes.
and that respects individual personal rights.
Yes.
Right. The Fourth Amendment is one of the precious constitutional rights that we all have. Right. So let me ask you, are we seeing refugees? Because we can't call them anything else, right? People from
Mhm.
that part of the world fleeing, coming to South Florida.
Yes. So there are some, specifically, there's 2 families that I'm helping. I have an organization that I'm a part of. It's a Sunny Isles Beach Children's Fund. But also it really kind of started as a group effort with a few teachers and a few moms from Aventura, Sunny Isles Beach, and even Miami Beach, saying, hey, we want to help these families. And they are refugees, even though they may not look like like these kids. I wish I could show you a picture, but I don't have their permission.
Sure.
They look like some, cute little surfers from Australia. Yeah, they're just, their clothes are brand new because
Mhm.
that's what someone purchased for them, but they came with a backpack. You have a little boy, a 10-year-old, explaining to me his last memories of leaving Kiev, where he says, oh, that's right, we had to wait for the tanks to stop bombing so we can run up to our apartment, grab our passports, and drive 2 days to Prague. From Prague, someone bought them a ticket to fly to Warsaw, and from Warsaw, someone bought them a ticket to come to Sunny Isles Beach.
I want to go back to something. Stop and think about what that child what you conveyed that the child said. We had to wait for the tanks to stop bombing,
Mhm.
to go back to the house. And we all look at our houses as being the center of security for a home, right? I mean, for us, man, how does a kid recover from something like that?
Well, the way that he said it so calmly and matter-of-factly was the part that was so scary to me, because the trauma there must be unreal. And so part of what I'm also doing is
War is
gathering.
normalized.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it's normalized. So we're trying to find resources here, people like, attorneys that could potentially do some pro bono work. But more importantly is I'm reaching out to people that are professionals that deal with trauma, that speak Russian.
So tell the audience, tell them what you want to hear. We got 2 minutes.
Okay.
Tell them what you want to hear. I mean, what you need from them to help.
So what right now that you can do, and I know a lot of people are giving donations of soup and those supplies, that is not as impactful as what you can do here at home. So if you're interested in helping these 2 families, and there are more coming, and you have any sort of professional experience, whether that be an immigration attorney, trauma therapy, preferably Russian speaking, whether you think you can help them some way, you personally with your connections, or you want to make a monetary donation, even if it is very small, for the purposes of, for instance, next week is spring break camp. I'm going to be paying for their spring break camp so they can have some normal activity during that break. If you want to make a donation, you can do that to our fund as well.
So, Mayor, how can they get a hold of you to be able to coordinate?
Sure. You can email me at larisasvechin@gmail.com.
Can you spell that for them?
Absolutely. You can call me. How about that? I don't mind giving out my cell phone number. It's 917-751-1565.
Okay. I can't thank you enough, man. I have so many questions to ask you. And the other day when we were speaking on the phone, you were so kind. You were introduced to me by Dr. Nancy Lauter, who was just on the show, a person I hold in high esteem. But you were so kind, and I can't thank you enough. But you said, I asked you something, and your answer was yes. And I asked you if I can join you in this journey to be able to see what we can do to help during this critical time that humans are facing. So if there's anything we can do,
thank you.
Please let us know. On that note, this has been another episode of Let's Talk with Robert Asencio. To the Millers, Grant, Michael Miller, and the Community News team, thank you. Andres, Elian, and the production team, thank you again. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what you think. We will be talking more about Ukraine and what's going on in the conflict zone, in the EU, because I feel that as the time goes on, as frustrations get greater, we will see an intensification of actions by the invading force. I do know that this is not over. And the sad part is that people are becoming sensitized or desensitized to the story, and is now starting to fade out of the news, something that we cannot afford to have. On that note, again, thank you, and look forward to seeing you the next time. This is Robert Asencio.